The body archives. Bodies that remember.
Some ideas move through the body long before they become words. The body remembers what history or the system forgets. Through fire, wind, voice, earth, the body becomes an archive of resistance. There are discourses that enter a system with more force than others. They surface in bodies, in breath, in the gaze, sometimes more clearly than in language. Artists translate these currents into form, rhythm, gestures. Curators read what becomes visible and what remains silent. Curating is not only an intellectual act, it is perception, intuition, and responsibility. There are discourses that pierce through us. They surface in the body, in the breath, in the way we look back at the world. Austria is speaking here, with words and without them.
Physical memory awakened in my body. I wanted to cry. Einfach auch unglaublich inspirierend. And I like that.
Together, they form a constellation. Light, wind, voice, earth. A choreography of remembering.
How do bodies remember?
With Loï is a fire that cannot be extinguished. Claire Louverve didn't reconstruct Loï Fuller. She created a relationship with her, a love letter, a confession, a fight with the woman who shaped her lineage.
It was kind of funny. I think that Claire Lefebvre is a very good speaker, and it was very entertaining to listen to it. And I also liked all the small references, queer or lesbian.
The feminist ancestors she admired were also the ones who admitted, erased, curated themselves into the center.
The posture that remains stored in my memory, I think, are the ones on the floor where she started her letters to Loï Fuller. If your body could speak, what would it say about the performance? Really interesting, and I'm thinking about it.
She created space to imagine, and maybe that's what research really is. Where do you end, and where do I begin? A question for every archive. And then the wind arrived. Zar felt like entering a storm. 5 women, shaking, stomping, letting rhythm travel through their bodies. The audience described it like this.
I felt like transmission of energy, or like highlighting points of extreme kinetic energy, like there was stomps, kicks, often repeated stomps and kicks. So every sort of movement was sort of a loop, and they just switched formations.
Das Stampfen und die Kreisbewegungen mit den Haaren. Also auch ein bisschen die Kraft der Haare.
Ich habe die ganze Zeit mit meinen Füßen etwas gemacht. Vielleicht, weil es viel mit diesen Drums zu tun, diese afrikanische, diese Schulter für mich oder in Kolumbien ist auch ganz wichtig.
Another person said, I breathed deeper without noticing. The circles and stamps stayed in my body.
Illusion of being cold because of how the stage was built, but they were shaking their shoulders. Also, I think it was the dust that was being thrown around, which reminded me of a cloud that happens or whatever when you're outside on a cold and you breathe out air. Basically this cloud forms. And I do remember like my body felt like I wanted to join them in dancing because of the rhythm.
Their bodies negotiated with something invisible, a presence, a rhythm. Women healing women through movement, breath, and repetition. For me, Zar was a negotiation between trance and exhaustion, and a reminder that many dances were once forbidden, erased, yet they returned through the body like wind coming back home. echoes of resistance, choreography of falling and rising, a body in constant negotiation with gravity, memory, breath. A girl from the audience told me,
Ich bin einfach völlig inspiriert und ich denke die ganze Zeit drüber nach. Also ich habe das Interview von der Choreografin von Echoes of Resistance gelesen und sie hat drinnen erklärt, dass einfach egal was für ein Stück sie macht, jeder wird es anders aufnehmen und jeder wird anders drüber nachdenken und sich andere Gedanken drüber machen.
Es gab viel Tanz. Und bei Razan Ribeiro, das ist immer tänzerisch. Ich sehe, dass die Tänzerin und Choreografin etwas sagen möchten und was genau, man kann das so unterschiedlich interpretieren.
she shifted from the contemplation into something like parallel world, a place made of tension, memory, resistance. There, the body becomes a battlefield, resisting, collapsing, fighting, rising. What stayed in me was shoulder, the way it touched the floor first, inviting the rest of the body to follow. Resistance, then released. Falling, then returning. Some movements fall, some movements rise, some remain. The last feminist didn't whisper, it confronted.
I think in this one I had the strongest reaction to whatever I have seen until now in this CPA, that I really appreciate what they did. I think it's a really important topic, feminism and its problems. I really felt empowered by what they did. I had a lot of energy on stage, so even if your English wasn't good enough to understand, or your background knowledge in feminism isn't, I think the rage and their presence and how they brought it had enough influence on the audience to understand what they were trying to say. I also really liked how gay it was, how queer it was, how diverse it was, not only in gender, sexuality and race, but also in like literally bodies. Yeah, it was a really cool experience to hear that. And the way they did it, it really felt like a protest on stage, with a lot of background knowledge, with a lot of information. The repetition of the different words and sentences helped to really get the message across, so having it repeated helped. It really brought back this sensation I had when I just moved to Austria, that Austrians are they just exist and they don't really voice what they're thinking.
It really didn't take long to make me cry, basically. Yeah, it was very emotional from the start, and I really liked that. But since I cried, I think my body would say something along the lines of that it's really necessary. Way the themes were conveyed and everything, and I think also the pretty much provocative approach was really good. I think that was really necessary. I mean, there's no calm way to expose people, making people uncomfortable, and my body was uncomfortable as well. I think that also like counts for a change. I was very tense, but it wasn't really out of nervousness. It was just I guess kind of eye-opening in some ways, where I'm like, okay, yeah, I did not think about that and stuff, and that it just moved me to want to inform myself more, you know.
Dear CPA, I didn't expect these performances to speak to me in the way they did, but somehow my intuition chose exactly the ones I needed. These 4 works reminded me of something simple but important, that my body also carries a voice, even if it didn't grow up with the same privileges many people around me had. I still remember the first time I did a privilege walk. I didn't understand it at first, but suddenly I realized how different my starting point was. No childhood instruments, no dance classes, no access to culture the way others had. My parents were just trying to survive, and yet, somehow, I made it here. Sometimes in class, I feel behind, surrounded by people who seem to know everything, who speak with confidence, who use their voices easily, and I keep asking myself who I am in all of these and whether my place here really matters. But these performances, Louis, Za, Echoes of Resistance, The Last Feminist, they reminded me that I don't have to think like them, that my body has its own archive, its own history, its own way of remembering and resisting. They all asked the same question in different ways. Who wrote the stories we call truth? And what was erased? And suddenly something clicked in me. The tension I carry, the doubt, the feeling of being less is softened. My body felt I'm here, I belong, and I can think, create, and move next to you, not behind you. These works brought me back to my own voice, to the idea that thinking with the body is also knowledge, that my background, my lack of privilege, my path, that is not a weakness. It's a part of what I bring. So if these performances were a way rewriting history, then this video is just my small way of saying I'm here too. And this is what stayed in my body. This is my body archive.